You know, in nursing, a patient's chart can tell you what's happening, but it almost never tells you why. And to really, truly understand a patient's health, you kind of need two different lenses. So today, we're going to explore those two worlds, the world of the personal story and the world of big picture data.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How do we see past the symptoms, past the vital signs, to really grasp the whole picture of what a person is going through? It's a huge challenge, but lucky for us, nursing research has some pretty powerful toolkits to help us do just that.
Think about it like this. On one hand, you could ask, what is it actually like to be at home with a SID kid? That's a story question. You're digging into the worry, the decisions, the whole experience. On the other hand, you could ask, okay, but what percentage of parents take their kid to a doctor within a day? That's a numbers question. Two totally different questions, and they need two totally different toolkits to answer.
All right, let's start in that first world, the one that's all about understanding the deep human why behind everything. Welcome to the world of qualitative research. So right off the bat, qualitative research isn't about counting things. It's a really thoughtful, systematic way to explore life experiences and, this is the important part, to give them meaning. It's all built on non-numerical stuff. You know, the stories people tell, the things we can observe, the real-world context of someone's life. So let's break that down a bit. We're talking about words and observations, not numbers. And the goal here is deep understanding, which is exactly why researchers often work with just a few people. You trade a huge sample size for incredibly rich, detailed information. The methods are flexible, like in-depth interviews or just observing, because you're trying to explore a topic, not necessarily prove a rigid hypothesis.
And boom, this is what that data actually looks like. This isn't a statistic, it's a story. You can almost feel the mother's anxiety. You get a glimpse into the family dynamic. You see how the decision to go to the clinic actually got made. This is the kind of human experience that qualitative research is all about capturing.
But what happens when we need to understand the experiences of, say, an entire community, not just one family? Well, for that, we have to step into a whole different world, the world of how many. And this is where we find a different tool, the survey. Yep, when it comes to gathering brand new, large-scale data, the survey is an absolute cornerstone. It's just one of the most efficient and powerful ways to systematically get information from a whole lot of people at once.
Now, the key words to focus on here are standardized and sample. See, unlike the flexible, open-ended vibe of qualitative work, a survey is all about asking everyone the exact same questions in the exact same way. That standardization is what allows us to take data from a small group, a sample, and then make pretty good guesses about the larger group they come from. And we can do this in two main ways. A cross-sectional survey. Well, that's like taking a snapshot. It tells you exactly what's going on with a group of people at one specific moment. But a longitudinal survey, that's more like a video. It follows the very same people over a period of time, letting us watch how things like behaviors or health outcomes actually change.
Okay, so we get the what, but why is this so incredibly important for nursing? What role does this kind of data actually play out on the floor, in clinical practice, and in making healthcare policy?
Well, it turns out surveys play about 5 crucial roles. First up, they let us check the health of an entire population, giving us that bird's-eye view of behaviors. That data then gets used to inform policy and guide really big decisions. They also let us test ideas and set baselines so we know if our programs are actually working. And of course, they're super efficient and flexible, which makes it possible to get data from massive, diverse groups pretty easily. And here's what that survey data can show us. Remember that one mother's story? Powerful, right? But this shows us something that one story never could. It clearly visualizes a trend. The farther away people live from a clinic, the longer it takes them to get treatment. That is a massive population-level insight, the kind of hard evidence you can use to argue for building a new clinic. So we've journeyed through these two very different worlds, the deep, personal world of why, and the broad, measurable world of how many. So how do they actually fit together? Let's just put it all side by side. It's pretty clear when you see it like this. The qualitative approach uses words and stories. Its goal is to understand meaning. It asks, why? The quantitative survey approach uses numbers and stats. Its goal is to measure things. It asks, how many? Or what's the connection here? And this right here is probably the most important takeaway of all. These are not competing ideas. They're partners. In fact, they make each other so much stronger. The stories we hear in qualitative research can help us write better, smarter survey questions.
And when a survey shows us some bizarre trend in the numbers, we need qualitative research to go find out why it's happening. To give the best care, you absolutely need both. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to this. The data shows you the trend, but the story reveals the person. The real question for any of us in healthcare is, which one will you be listening for today?